Hi, I'm Steve Good and welcome to my Scroll Saw Workshop. Okay, we're going to get started tonight in the first tutorial about creating scroll saw patterns with CorelDraw. I've talked about in the previous post and videos about what version of CorelDraw that you'll be able to use to follow these tutorials. I will be using CorelDraw X5, which is the latest version. CorelDraw X4 should be fine to follow in with these tutorials with maybe some slight differences. If you go back farther than that, you're going to have more differences in the user interface, and some of the tools either won't be in the toolbox at all, or they will be somewhat different. So if you have CorelDraw X4, X5, you should be good to go in these tutorials. What I would like to do is go through a series of pattern creation tutorials where I actually try to teach the tools within CorelDraw as we design a pattern. I think that's going to keep the interest up in the videos and make it easier to follow. But before we get started with that, we again have to start with the basics of the program as far as the user interface and what each of the sections of the user interface are for, and we'll try to rapidly get through that, and then we'll get on to creating our first pattern. When you first start CorelDraw, after you have it installed, it will boot up to a screen that looks like this. You'll have your quick start screen or your welcome screen that comes up on top of your CorelDraw program, and this is a welcome screen that allows you to select previous patterns that you've had open or previous files you've had open. Allows you to create a new blank document or from a template. It also has these tabs over here that'll show you things like what's new in this version of program. This particular tab will teach you some of the basics of CorelDraw, and this may be something that you want to come back to. Going through these, learning the basics and the different video tutorials they have on here, they're really good, and I think you can learn a lot from them. And since we're going to skip over a lot of the tools in this tutorial because we don't need them, you may want to go back and learn those tools by watching these videos. Also has a gallery tab that will show artwork created by other CorelDraw artists, and the bottom tab here is for updates. I do not personally start CorelDraw with this welcome screen up, so I turn these two checkboxes off so it won't come up the next time I start it. You may like the welcome screen. If you do, leave it on. Okay, I'm going to shut that down. This is the CorelDraw application screen. We do not have a document open at this point, but we do have our Docker over here set up to show the hints. This hint Docker is context sensitive, so as we select different tools, it will come up here with different information about that tool. The program has a title bar, a menu bar. This bar here is called the toolbar, the properties bar. This is the toolbox, and the toolbox contains all the tools we'll use to draw our patterns. And we have our color palette over on this side and an information bar down here at the bottom that gives us some information about the document we have open. Let's go ahead and create a new document, and to do that we'll come up here to the icon in the upper left hand corner, and you'll notice that as you hover over different tools in the application, these tooltips will pop up and they'll give you a brief description of what that tool does. In this case, this is the Start a New Document icon. As we click that, we get a properties box that pops up. Now this is only in CorelDraw X5. If you're using X4 or earlier, you will not see this dialog box pop up. It will just simply create a default document on the screen for you. In this case, we're going to start out with an 8.5 by 11 inch paper in portrait mode, and all the rest of the features on here are the defaults that we are happy with. So let's go ahead and click OK. Now I am going to probably eventually turn this dialog box over because I always use the default document for scroll saw patterns, but for the time being we'll leave it on and we'll just click OK. That opened a new document that we can start creating our pattern in or do our drawings. And let's real quickly, at least as quickly as I can, talk a little bit about the toolbox first, because these are all the tools over here on the left that you'll be using to create your scroll saw patterns. And I want you to understand that even though there are a lot of tools here, and there's even more tools hidden underneath these, we are only going to use a small subset of these tools to create scroll saw patterns, because we're basically just creating black and white line art for our patterns. We don't need anything that has to do with color. There's several tools that we just don't need. So real quick, I'm going to try to get through this as quick as possible and go through the tools that we will use. In the top here we have the pick tool. That one we'll use. Below that we have the shape tool, and if you'll notice underneath the shape tool there's a little triangle. That means that there is a flyout box that as we press and hold down the left mouse key, the flyout will open and it will show the other tools that are available in that box. If we select one of these under here, of course we select that tool to use it. In this case, the only tool that I use in this flyout is the shape tool. So these other three I never use for creating scroll saw patterns. Below that is the crop tool and the flyout. Underneath the crop tool has the knife, the eraser, and the virtual segment delete. I do use the eraser and the knife tool, so we will talk about those. Below that is the zoom and the pan tool. I use both of those. The zoom I use very frequently. Underneath that, we have the drawing tools. We have the freehand draw that we use. I use the pen draw for tracing. Occasionally I will use the artistic media and the Bezier tool. The rest of these tools, they're all fine, they work great, but I don't use them for scroll saw patterns, so we're going to skip over those. Below that we have the smart fill and the smart drawing. I never use any of those, we'll skip over them. We have the rectangle tool and the 3-point rectangle tool. I use the rectangle tool all the time, we'll skip over the other one. We have the ellipse tool, which we'll use. We have the polygon, the star, complex star, graph paper, and spiral. Of these tools, I use the star and the spiral very occasionally, but I do use it, so we'll talk about it. Underneath that, we have basic shapes, arrows, flow charts, shapes, banners, and call-out shapes. I do occasionally use the basic shapes, but none of the rest of them. Very important tool under that is the text tool. We will use that. We'll never use the table tool. Very, very seldom use any of the parallel dimension, horizontal or vertical dimension, or any of the dimensioning tools. Occasionally we do, but I probably won't discuss them in these tutorials. We have the straight line connector. I use none of these tools. Below that we have the blend, contour, distort, drop shadow, envelope, extrude, and transparency. Of those we will use the contour tool extensively. We will use the envelope tool occasionally. The rest of these are almost never used. Below that, the color eyedropper, attributes eyedropper, we won't use those. We will use the outline pen, outline color, and all the different sizes here, but we'll use them actually from the property bar, not generally from the toolbox menu. All these fills, we will probably not discuss those because they won't be used in our pattern making. And below that we have the interactive fill and the mesh fill, and we won't use those. So as you see from that, most of those tools we will not discuss. You can go back and learn them on your own, or if you're interested in some of them in particular, ask me about them in an email, and maybe I'll add them to the end of these tutorials if people are interested. So we have a very small set of tools that we're going to use to create scroll saw patterns. So I'm going to stop this video here, and we're going to consider that the absolute basics of what you need to know and expect to learn in this series of videos. And we'll stop here, and in the next video we're going to make a pattern, and we're going to use these tools to make that pattern. And as I go through the design of the pattern, I will teach you the basics of each tool. I'm Steve Good. I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.